In March 2026, investigative royal biographer Tom Bower published Betrayal, a book built from named sources, documented financial records, and on-record accounts of what has been happening inside the Sussex operation since they left the royal family. His findings landed at #1 on Amazon within days. The Sussex team issued a public statement calling it deranged conspiracy. Here is why that response told you more than the book did. When someone publishes sourced, documented findings and your official response is deranged conspiracy, that is not a denial. A real denial says the date is wrong or the document does not exist. Their statement said Bower had never met them, which is true of almost every investigative biographer who has ever published anything credible. Bower never met Robert Maxwell either, did not make the pension fraud less real. What Bower's 2026 findings actually confirmed, and what this video maps forensically for the first time, is a sequence that started not with a book, not with a documentary, not with a memoir, but with a quiet private decision made in January 2024 inside the most powerful talent agency in Hollywood. A decision that nobody in the Sussex camp has ever publicly acknowledged. A decision that once made triggered every collapse that followed. This is that sequence. Named sources, verified timelines, no filler. Before we go any further, if you are new to PALACEDROP, hit subscribe and turn on notifications right now. We cover the royal family the way it actually happens, not the version the palace approves. New video every week and you do not want to miss what is coming. Now let us get into this. To understand what fell apart, you have to understand what was actually built. When Meghan Markle married Prince Harry in May 2018, she brought something into that relationship that almost nobody in the royal family had ever possessed. A pre-existing career, a professional network, and a clear understanding of how image gets constructed and managed in the entertainment industry. She had spent a decade building that network from Toronto, where she filmed Suits. The city gave her access to a social circle that included designers, socialites, media figures, and one woman who would become the most important relationship in her pre-royal life, Jessica Mulroney, stylist, television personality, and the person Meghan trusted with the details of her life that never appeared in any interview. When the royal wedding happened in May 2018, Jessica's children were the page boys and the flower girl. Not guests, not invitees, members of the wedding party itself. The most intimate position one human being can give another on the most significant day of their life. That detail matters because it tells you something true about how Meghan operates at her best, with genuine warmth, genuine loyalty, and genuine investment in the people she brings close. What the next 6 years documented is what happens when proximity becomes a liability. The first 2 years inside the royal family were by any external measure successful. The royal wedding generated global audience figures that dwarfed any comparable event. The couple's public appearances were consistently well received. Their charitable work, particularly around mental health through the Royal Foundation they then shared with William and Kate, was substantive and credible. But underneath the successful exterior, something was building that the public could not see. In October 2018, 5 months after the wedding, Meghan's own communications secretary, Jason Kanoff, sent a formal email to Simon Case, then private secretary to Prince William, copying the palace HR department. That email did not stay private. Before we go further, drop in the comments right now where you are watching from. We have people watching from all over the world, and I want to know where the PALACEDROP community is based. Drop your country or your city below. Now back to this, because what comes next is where the story gets genuinely significant. Knopf's email is one of the most significant documents in the entire Sussex story, and it is almost never discussed with the seriousness it deserves. This was not a disgruntled employee venting. Jason Kanoff was the man Harry had personally asked to help Meghan write the private letter to her estranged father, a letter later at the center of legal proceedings. He was a trusted insider by every available measure. His email stated on the record in his own words, "I am very concerned that the Duchess was able to bully 2 PAs out of the household in the past year. The Duchess seems intent on always having someone in her sights." And then the final line, "the one that should stop you cold." I question if the household policy on bullying and harassment applies to principals. He was not just reporting behavior, he was asking whether the rules applied to her at all. That is not the language of someone with a personal grudge. That is the language of someone who already knows the answer and is putting it in writing anyway. Harry reportedly asked Knopf not to pursue it. Knopf quit the following month. He went directly to work for Prince William. The most trusted insider in the Sussex operation became the most credible adverse witness, and he did it within weeks. Buckingham Palace launched an internal investigation into the claims. The findings have never been made public. They remain sealed. When the story broke publicly in March 2021, 3 years after the email was filed, Meghan's official response was this: "The Duchess is saddened by this latest attack on her character, particularly as someone who has been the target of bullying herself." A formal HR complaint submitted by her own communications secretary was reframed in a single sentence as an attack on a bullying victim. That reframing is important, not because it tells you definitively what happened, the palace investigation findings remain sealed, but because it established a pattern of response that would repeat across every subsequent crisis. Deny the specific, reframe as victimhood, move forward, watch how that pattern plays out across everything that follows. In April 2023, Meghan signed with William Morris Endeavour, WME, Ari Emanuel's agency, the man who represents Dwayne Johnson, Mark Wahlberg, and critically Oprah Winfrey. This was not standard talent representation. Industry insiders were explicit about what WME's primary function was for Meghan. When you have Ari Emanuel in your corner, negative stories do not get published. Publications reconsider. Editors make calls they would not otherwise make. The shield was the point. And for approximately 9 months it worked. Then came Thanksgiving 2023. According to multiple industry sources, Meghan was dissatisfied with the level of attention the agency gave her during the holiday period. She requested a meeting in January 2024. She arrived, according to sources familiar with the meeting, expecting decks and plans. What she got was Ari Emanuel's decision. He was done. One independent source stated plainly, "WME is definitely not working on Meghan's personal business." Both sides publicly denied it. The Sussex camp maintained the relationship was intact. WME did not issue a direct confirmation of the split. Then came the number that exposed everything. One Hollywood insider stated on Background, "There is no way the Variety piece about her fallout with Netflix would have run if WME was still looking after Meghan." The shield fell in January 2024. The Variety piece ran within weeks. The financial stories followed immediately after. Every negative story published since then, the Netflix tensions, the as ever collapse, the staff departures, ran in that unprotected window. Now look at the Spotify sequence because it tells the same story from a different angle. In 2020, Harry and Meghan signed a reported $20 million deal with Spotify. The promise was a podcast series built around diverse voices and compelling stories. What was delivered across a 3-year contract was 13 episodes, 1 series, and 1 standalone holiday special. On June 16, 2023, the same day the deal ended, Spotify's head of podcast innovation, Bill Simmons, went on his own show and said this on the record at Volume, "Grifters. That is the podcast we should have launched with them." He then added that he had a story, a specific story from a specific Zoom call with Harry, a specific pitch Harry had made, that he considered one of the best stories he had, and he said he needed to get drunk before telling it. That is not casual frustration. That is a man who witnessed something specific, named it publicly, and chose very deliberately to hold the full story for later. Whatever Harry pitched on that call, whatever it revealed about how the Sussex operation actually thinks the entertainment industry works, Simmons considered it revealing enough to reference publicly and damaging enough to withhold. That story still has not been told in full. If this is the kind of coverage you want, sourced, specific, no filler, subscribe to PALACEDROP right now and hit the bell. This is what every video on this channel looks like. You do not want to find us 3 months from now and have to catch up. The Netflix structure followed the exact same sequence as Spotify. Reported $100 million deal. A documentary series that performed because and only because it attacked the royal family. Follow-up projects that generated, in the words of one industry analysis, no major splash. Netflix investing as equity partner in As Ever, Meghan's lifestyle brand. Netflix then pulling out of As Ever. The production deal quietly downgraded to a first-look arrangement in the summer of 2025. The deal expiring without renewal in July 2025. 2 seasons of With Love Meghan produced. No third season announced. Sign big. Deliver less. Exit quietly. Move to the next contract. The math was identical every time. The staff departure record is where the pattern becomes impossible to explain as bad luck. 18 senior departures since 2018. This is not a human resources issue. Professionals in adjacent industries recognize this immediately. Chief of Staff Josh Kettler resigned after 3 months in 2024. His stated reason was that there were aspects of the job he was not comfortable with. 3 months. Industry standard tenure for a Chief of Staff role is 3 to 5 years. Chief Communications Officer Meredith Maines resigned on December 26, 2025. Executive Director of Archewell James Holt resigned on December 29, 2025. 3 days apart, end of year. The 2 most senior people in their communications and organizational structure walking out simultaneously. Royal photographer Helena Chard commented directly on Maines' departure. Her assessment was precise. Maines is a highly respected communications professional and without doubt will be protecting her reputation from the Sussexes' possible damaging erratic behavior. A communication strategy only works if all parties adhere to the plan. She was not saying the strategy failed. She was saying the principal was not following it. That the people hired to manage the brand were being overridden by the person whose brand they were managing. Former Palace staff coined a term, the Sussex Survivors Club, to describe what sources called a form of post-traumatic stress experienced after working for the couple, initially used with some humor, less humorous with every new member. Then there is the trademark failure. In September 2024, the United States Patent and Trademark Office declined Meghan's application to trademark American Riviera Orchard. The reason? It referred to her hometown of Montecito, and geographic locations cannot be trademarked. She had been building a lifestyle empire, jams, teas, honey, wine, crepe mix, flour sprinkles, on a brand name that was legally unprotectable from day one. The February 2025 rebrand to As Ever was not a creative evolution. It was a legal emergency, dressed as a refresh. The foundation of the entire commercial operation had been invalid from the beginning. Netflix's simultaneous withdrawal as equity partner from As Ever was not coincidence. It was a consequence. The Invictus Games in Vancouver in 2025 produced the single detail that best summarizes the current position. Tom Bower documented that a wheelchair basketball match at Harry's flagship charity event drew 43 paying spectators. Approximately 100 additional people were reportedly brought in by organizers and positioned around Harry and Meghan for photographs. 43 paying spectators at the flagship event of the man who walked away from a multi-billion-pound institution with centuries of infrastructure and genuine global reach. The brand is not just failing. It is being kept alive on life support and photographed to look healthy. Step back from the individual contracts and departures and look at the full shape of what the evidence shows. Every person or company that paid Meghan Markle serious money entered the relationship as an enthusiastic supporter. Every single one exited after proximity revealed something they felt unable to describe publicly. The Beckhams. Victoria Beckham personally decorated Frogmore Cottage. David was at the royal wedding. By 2026, David Beckham's public position on Prince William is, "Whenever the Prince of Wales sends me a message and says I need you to do this, it is always a yes." That is not neutrality. That is a man who did the math. Gina Torres, a core member of the Suits cast that Meghan worked with for years, said publicly and without apparent malice, "We don't have her number. We just don't. Not as a complaint, as a fact." Elton John, one of the most loyal figures in the British celebrity world, a man who stayed close to Harry specifically out of love for Princess Diana, reportedly maintains as little contact with Meghan as possible. Bill Simmons, Ari Emanuel, the Netflix content team, Spotify, 18 members of staff and counting. One anonymous source, with a direct view of the entire 8-year arc, put it in a single sentence: "From what I can see, the people who have stayed most loyal to them are beneath them and get something out of it. Everyone else, they fall out with." And then there is Harry, the man who left a centuries-old institution, who wrote a memoir, who now attends polo matches alone, book launches alone, charity events where 43 people paid to be in the room. Based on every document reviewed, the HR complaint he reportedly begged his own secretary not to file, the Beckham friendship being managed without his knowledge, the Netflix deal described as intact until it demonstrably was not. Harry may be the last person in this story to fully understand what has been happening around him. Frogmore Cottage was the last physical proof that regardless of how many attacks were launched, how many interviews and documentaries produced, the Sussexes were still tethered to the institution that gave them their commercial value. King Charles removed that tether. With it went the last justification for the entire project. They left to become something. They had every advantage: the global profile, the Hollywood connections, the reported hundreds of millions in combined deals, the goodwill of an audience that genuinely wanted them to succeed. 6 years later, the shield is gone. The deals have expired. The staff have left. The trademark was invalid from the start. The flagship charity event fills 43 seats and stages the rest. The most honest public assessment of what the Sussex brand became came from a man on a podcast on a Friday afternoon in June 2023. Someone who had signed a $20 million deal with them, who had sat across from them on Zoom calls, who had watched the operation from the inside and made his own quiet calculation. He called them grifters, on the record, at volume. And then he said he had a story, a specific story, from a specific call, with a specific pitch from Harry, that he considered one of the best stories he had. He still has not told it in full. That story exists. It is sitting somewhere waiting. Subscribe to PALACEDROP and hit the bell. Every week we go deeper on the stories the palace does not want mapped. The palace has a version of every story. This is the other one. In the next video on this channel, we are going inside Buckingham Palace. We are going inside the financial decisions William has already made that tell you exactly what Camilla's future looks like. And the numbers are not what anyone is reporting. That video is coming this week. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss it.